The Colosseum loomed, a monstrous amphitheater carved from obsidian rock, its jagged spires clawing at the blood-red sky. Within its walls, a cacophony of alien tongues melded into a singular deafening roar. A demand for spectacle, for violence, for human blood. Captain Adrienne Vale stood at the epicenter of this crucible, her breath steady, eyes narrowed. The heat from the twin suns above baked the sand beneath her boots, each grain a reminder of battles fought and lives lost. She flexed her fingers, feeling the grit, the reality of the moment. Before her, the adversaries assembled. A Zephyrin warlord, towering with sinews coiled like steel cables. A Slarn executioner, its exoskeleton oozing venom from unseen pores. And the most insidious opponent of all, the arena's decree: no weapons, no armor. Flesh and bone against monstrosities. Adrienne's gaze flicked to her team. Juno, the engineer, her eyes a storm of calculations, fingers twitching as if manipulating invisible circuits. Rafe, the wild card, a smirk playing on his lips, eyes alight with reckless anticipation. Elijah, the dreamer, murmuring under his breath, a prayer, a strategy, or perhaps both. She stepped forward, her voice slicing through the din. "We're humans," she declared, the words a defiant anthem. "We don't fight fair." The Zephyrn's response was immediate. A guttural roar as it lunged, its massive fist hurtling toward Adrienne like a meteor. Time seemed to fracture. Adrienne's muscles coiled, and she pivoted, the fist grazing past her, stirring the air with its ferocity. Rafe seized the moment. With a burst of speed, he closed the distance, launching himself onto the Zephyrn's arm. His movements were fluid, almost dance-like, as he scaled the limb, each grip and foothold precise. Reaching the warlord's shoulder, he drove his elbow into a cluster of nerve fibers. The Sci-Fi bellowed, staggering, its equilibrium disrupted. Juno was already in motion. Dropping to one knee, she scooped a handful of sand, her mind a whirlwind of physics and chemistry. With swift precision, she flung the grains into the Slarn's multifaceted eyes. The creature hissed, its vision clouded, mandibles snapping at phantoms. Elijah moved with purpose, his demeanor serene amidst the chaos. He sidestepped the Slarn's blind thrashing, positioning himself at its flank. With a calculated strike, he targeted the juncture between exoskeletal plates. The Slarn convulsed, its neural pathways overloaded, and collapsed in a twitching heap. The crowd's roar faltered, a collective gasp rippling through the spectators. This was not the slaughter they had anticipated. This was a symphony of strategy, adaptability, and audacity. Adrienne regrouped with her team, their breaths synchronized, eyes locked. The Zephyrin regained its footing, fury emanating from its every pore. It charged, a juggernaut of rage. But this time they were ready. "Juno, the knees!" Adrienne commanded. Juno nodded, her analytical mind already devising trajectories. She darted forward, sliding beneath the Sci-Fi's stomping feet, and delivered a precise kick to the back of its knee. The joint buckled, and the giant lurched forward. "Rafe, now!" With feline agility, Rafe leaped, his fists a blur as they connected with the Zephyrin's throat, targeting the vulnerable tracheal tubes. The warlord gurgled, its airway compromised, and crashed to the ground, the arena trembling with its fall. Silence enveloped the Colosseum. The once jeering crowd was now a sea of stunned faces, grappling with the upheaval of their expectations. Adrienne stood tall, her team's formation unbroken. She scanned the audience, her voice resonating with unyielding resolve. "We are human," she proclaimed. "We adapt, we endure, and we prevail." The declaration hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown at the feet of the galaxy's fiercest. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As they exited the arena, the weight of their victory settled upon them. They had not only survived, but redefined the parameters of combat. Yet beneath the veneer of triumph, a new challenge loomed. A revelation that would test the very core of their unity and resilience. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but one truth remained steadfast. In the face of insurmountable odds, humanity would always find a way to turn the tide. The arena's sands were still settling from the fallen Gifren when the next wave of adversaries emerged. The gates groaned open, releasing a trio of Korthian brutes, their exoskeletons shimmering under the artificial suns, mandibles clicking in a sinister rhythm. The crowd's roar intensified, a palpable thirst for carnage electrifying the air. Adrienne's pulse quickened, each heartbeat echoing the drum of impending conflict. She exchanged a glance with her team, their unspoken communication honed by countless battles. "Stay sharp," she murmured, her voice a taut wire of command and concern. The Korthians advanced, their movements synchronized, a predatory ballet. Rafe's grin widened, adrenaline igniting his veins. "Time to dance," he quipped, his tone a cocktail of bravado and anticipation. Without warning, the lead Korthian lunged, its serrated limbs slicing through the air toward Rafe. He sidestepped, the blade grazing his torso, fabric tearing, a thin line of crimson blossoming. He hissed through clenched teeth but capitalized on the momentum, delivering a swift kick to the creature's thorax. The Korthian staggered, mandibles snapping in fury. Juno's mind raced, eyes darting across the arena, absorbing every detail. The texture of the sand, the placement of shadows, the subtle shifts in their opponents' stances. She dropped to one knee, fingers sifting through the coarse grains, formulating a plan. "Elijah, on my mark, flank left," she instructed, her voice a calm amidst the storm. Elijah nodded, his expression a canvas of focus and determination. He adjusted his stance, muscles coiled, ready to spring. The second Korthian charged, targeting him with lethal intent. Elijah waited, breath steady, timing precise. As the creature closed in, Juno shouted, "Now!" Elijah pivoted, evading the Korthian strike by a hair's breadth. In the same fluid motion, he grabbed a discarded fragment of chitin from the previous battle, using it as an improvised shield. The Korthian's limb collided with the makeshift barrier, the impact reverberating up Elijah's arm, but he held firm, leveraging the creature's momentum to unbalance it. Adrienne engaged the third Korthian, her movements a study in controlled aggression. She feigned left, drawing the creature's attack, then countered with a right hook to its mandible joint. The exoskeleton cracked, a high-pitched screech piercing the air. She pressed the advantage, relentless, each strike calculated, each breath measured. Rafe, bleeding but undeterred, faced off with the first Korthian. He weaved through its attacks, a dance of survival and defiance. Spotting an opening, he lunged forward, driving his elbow into the creature's eye cluster. The Korthian recoiled, a guttural roar escaping its maw. Juno's analytical mind reached a conclusion. "Their joints," she called out. "Target the joints, it's their weak point." The team adjusted instantly, their cohesion seamless. Elijah sidestepped another attack, delivering a precise kick to the Korthian's knee joint. The limb buckled, the creature collapsing to the sand. Adrienne followed suit, her strikes now focused on the vulnerable articulations, each blow dismantling the enemy's defenses. Rafe, fueled by Juno's insight, executed a spinning kick, connecting with the first Korthian's elbow joint. The satisfying crunch of exoskeleton yielding to force was accompanied by the creature's pained howl. He pressed on, unrelenting, each movement a testament to human resilience and adaptability. The crowd's fervor shifted, the initial hunger for human defeat transforming into awe. Whispers rippled through the spectators, a realization dawning. These humans were not mere prey. They were warriors, unpredictable and formidable. As the last Corthian fell, its body a broken testament to the team's prowess, Adrienne stood amidst the aftermath, chest heaving, sweat mingling with the dust on her skin. She surveyed her team, Rafe's grin undimmed by his injuries, Juno's eyes alight with the thrill of problem-solving under pressure, Elijah's calm demeanor unshaken, but the respite was brief. The arena's floor trembled, a low rumble that grew into a cacophony as the ground split open. From the chasm emerged a creature unlike any they had faced. A Xylothian behemoth, towering and grotesque, its multiple eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. The crowd's roar reached a fever pitch, the anticipation of witnessing an insurmountable challenge electrifying the atmosphere. Adrienne's heart pounded, the weight of the new threat pressing down on her. She tightened her fists, the coarse grit of the sand biting into her palms. "This isn't over," she muttered, resolve hardening like tempered steel. The behemoth's roar shook the very foundations of the arena, a sound that resonated deep within their bones. The team formed up, a united front against the monstrous adversary. Each member understood the stakes, the razor's edge they balanced upon. As the behemoth advanced, its massive form casting a shadow that engulfed them, Adrienne's voice rang out, clear and unwavering. "We face this together. We adapt, we fight, and we survive. For humanity." The team's collective shout echoed her sentiment, a battle cry that defied the odds stacked against them. The behemoth's eyes narrowed, as if recognizing the indomitable spirit before it. The confrontation loomed, a clash that would test their limits and redefine the boundaries of possibility. The arena, once a stage for their potential demise, now stood as the proving ground for their unyielding resolve. The Xylothian behemoth's roar reverberated through the Colosseum, a guttural proclamation of dominance. Its massive scaled form shifted, muscles rippling beneath iridescent skin, each movement exuding lethal grace. The ground trembled under its weight, sending vibrations up through the soles of Adrienne's boots, grounding her in the reality of the monstrous adversary before them. Adrienne tightened her fists, feeling the coarse grit of the arena's sand against her skin. "Eyes sharp, everyone," she commanded, her voice a steady anchor amidst the rising tide of tension. "We take this beast down, or we don't leave this pit." Rafe wiped a trickle of blood from his brow, his trademark grin undiminished. "Just another day at the office," he quipped, rolling his shoulders to loosen the knots of anticipation coiling within him. Juno's gaze was fixed, analytical. "It's a predator," she observed, noting the creature's calculating eyes. "It'll test us before committing to an attack." Elijah's breath was measured, controlled. "Then let's not give it the satisfaction," he replied, his tone a blend of resolve and defiance. The behemoth's eyes, each the size of a human head, gleamed with a predatory intelligence. It lowered itself, coiling like a spring, muscles bunching in preparation. The air grew thick with anticipation, the crowd's roar fading into a distant hum as the team's focus narrowed to a singular point. Without warning, the behemoth lunged, a blur of motion belying its massive size. Adrienne dove to the side, feeling the rush of displaced air as a clawed limb slashed through the space she'd occupied moments before. She rolled to her feet, sand clinging to sweat-slicked skin, and shouted, "Flank it! Keep moving!" Rafe was already in motion, darting to the creature's left, his movements a dance of agility and daring. He feinted, drawing the behemoth's attention, its eyes tracking him with lethal intent. "Over here, ugly," he taunted, dodging a snapping maw lined with razor-sharp teeth. Juno circled to the right, her mind a whirlwind of calculations. She observed the creature's movements, seeking patterns, weaknesses. "The joints," she called out, echoing her earlier insight. "Target the joints, it's their weak point." Elijah nodded, his expression grim. He moved with purpose, closing the distance to the behemoth's hind limb. With a swift, decisive motion, he struck at the knee joint, feeling the impact resonate up his arm. The creature bellowed, a sound that shook the very air, and lashed out. Elijah barely evaded, the tip of a claw grazing his shoulder, a line of fire searing across his flesh. Adrienne seized the momentary distraction. She sprinted forward, aiming for the behemoth's other hind leg. Her breath came in controlled bursts, each step calculated. She leaped, driving her elbow into the joint with all her strength. The behemoth roared again, its balance wavering. Rafe capitalized on the opening. He vaulted onto the creature's back, gripping a ridge of scales to steady himself. "Let's see how you like this," he shouted, driving his fist into the base of the behemoth's skull. The creature bucked, a violent motion that sent Rafe sprawling to the sand, the impact jarring, but leaving him undeterred. Juno's eyes widened as she noticed a subtle shift in the behemoth's stance. "It's adapting," she warned, urgency threading her voice. "We need to end this now." Adrienne's mind raced, options flickering and fading in rapid succession. Then clarity. "Elijah, Rafe, distracted. Juno, with me." The men launched into action, each attack a calculated risk, drawing the behemoth's ire. Adrienne and Juno sprinted toward the arena's edge, where the remnants of previous battles lay scattered. Among the debris, Adrienne spotted a broken spear shaft, its end splintered but sharp. "This'll have to do," she muttered, hefting the improvised weapon. She met Juno's gaze, a silent exchange of trust and determination. They turned back to the fray, where Elijah and Rafe fought with relentless tenacity. The behemoth's movements had grown more erratic, frustration evident in its snarls and hisses. "Now!" Adrienne shouted, charging forward, Juno at her side. Elijah and Rafe disengaged, rolling clear as Adrienne closed the distance. She ducked under a wild swipe, the air whistling past her ear, and drove the spear shaft into the behemoth's exposed joint with a primal yell. The creature's scream was a cacophony of pain and rage, its leg collapsing beneath it. Juno didn't hesitate. She leaped onto the behemoth's back, agile and precise, and struck at the base of its skull with a sharp piece of debris. The creature convulsed, its death throes shaking the ground before finally stilling, its massive form settling into the sand. The arena fell into a stunned silence, the crowd processing the unprecedented spectacle they'd witnessed. Then, as if a dam had broken, a tidal wave of sound crashed over the Colosseum. Cheers, shouts, a symphony of exhilaration and disbelief. Adrienne stood amidst the aftermath, chest heaving, every muscle singing with exhaustion and triumph. She looked to her team, Rafe's grin a beacon of unyielding spirit, Juno's eyes alight with the thrill of victory, Elijah's calm demeanor a steadying force. But as the echoes of their triumph reverberated, a new sound emerged. A slow, deliberate clap. Adrienne's gaze snapped to the source, where a figure stood at the edge of the arena, cloaked in shadow, yet exuding an aura of authority and menace. The figure stepped forward, and the artificial suns cast light upon a face, etched with scars, eyes cold and calculating. The crowd's fervor dimmed, a collective breath held in anticipation. "Impressive," the figure spoke, voice a silken threat. "But the real challenge has yet to begin." Adrienne's heart pounded, the weight of the words sinking in. She tightened her grip on the splintered spear, resolve hardening. "Bring it on," she replied, her voice unwavering, a defiant spark igniting in her eyes. The arena floor trembled beneath Adrienne's feet as the final challenger emerged. The reigning champion, a beast bred for war, stepped into the light. A Wagner Titan, 3 meters of armored muscle, its 4 arms each ending in razored claws. Its eyes burning with the cold intelligence of a species that had never known defeat locked onto them. Silence fell. Even the rowdiest spectators held their breath. Then the bell rang. The Titan moved with terrifying speed. Adrienne barely had time to throw herself aside before a strike carved through the air where she had stood. She rolled, dirt clinging to her sweat-slick skin. A heartbeat later, Rafe was in motion, launching himself at the Titan's flank, aiming for the vulnerable joints. It was like attacking a mountain. The Titan barely flinched. A backhanded swipe sent Rafe flying, his body twisting mid-air before he crashed into the ground, coughing blood. Juno pulled him back as the Titan turned, already assessing its next target, Elijah. The dreamer stood his ground, eyes sharp, hands loose. He wasn't the strongest, nor the fastest, but he could see the patterns, the weaknesses in the chaos. He darted forward, feinting right before pivoting left. His fists struck the Titan's side, precise, probing. Nothing. Adrienne clenched her jaw. No weapons, no armor, no way to break through its defenses. Unless... She locked eyes with Juno, and in an instant the engineer understood. Humans didn't just fight with fists, they fought with minds. "Go high," Juno whispered, hands already gathering dust and debris from the arena floor. Adrienne sprinted forward as Elijah and Rafe recovered, forming a loose triangle around the Titan. They couldn't match its raw power, but they didn't have to. Rafe grinned through bloodied teeth. Time to make a mess. He lunged low, drawing the Titan's attention. Juno hurled a handful of dust into its face. Tiny grains, but devastating to the sensitive membranes of a predator's eyes. The Titan roared, momentarily blinded. That was all the opening Adrienne needed. She leapt, using the Titan's own arm as a springboard, twisting through the air. Her hands found purchase on its thick, corded neck. A human weighed nothing to a Titan, but weight wasn't the weapon. Pressure was. Her arms wrapped tight, locking in. A sleeper hold, a technique older than history itself. The Titan staggered, thrashing, but Adrienne clung like a vice, her forearm crushing its airway. Rafe struck its knee, Elijah its ribs. Juno calculated every angle, shouting adjustments. The Titan bucked and twisted, but it was too late. Its body betrayed it. A universal truth. Even gods need to breathe. Seconds stretched into eternity. The Titan dropped to one knee, then the other. Its massive hands clawed at Adrienne, desperate for air. The crowd, once deafening, was silent. And then... The Titan collapsed. Adrienne rolled free, gasping, arms trembling with exertion. The dust settled. The arena floor was littered with the bodies of giants, and at its center stood 4 battered, breathless humans. A slow murmur rippled through the audience. Disbelief, then awe, and then finally... Thunderous applause. The Colosseum erupted, a tidal wave of sound that shook the heavens. The galaxy had witnessed something impossible. Humans, unarmed, had conquered the unconquerable. Adrienne met the gazes of her team, Juno grinning through exhaustion. Rafe, bruised but victorious. Elijah already analyzing their next move.